All right. So my number three is a movie called Last Holiday from 2006, directed by Wayne Wang, starring Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, Timothy Hutton. Quick logline: upon learning of a terminal illness, a shy woman decides to sell all her possessions and live it up at posh Central European hotel. So I put this movie on my list because this movie to me is sort of that representation of unbridled joy and that feeling of happiness and holidays, and honestly really getting out of the way and getting everything else out of your way
Mm,
and doing the things that you enjoy doing the things that bring you joy. It's about self-care, it's about loving the people you love, and yeah, once again sort of underlining that feeling of joy. And then really by the end of it, to me, and I don't know if the movie does this, but at least to me, this movie always was about it's actually not just the holiday season.
mm.
You can extend this way of living, of self-care and prioritizing joy, and in some ways kindness as well, all year round.
Hmm.
Because this woman, Queen Latifah's character, is dealt with a heavy hand in life, and that could have happened at any point in her life,
Hmm.
and she just makes the most out of it, and I find that very powerful and moving. To that end, the movie is a cheesy movie. I
Hmm.
mean, this could very easily be a Lifetime movie or a present day Netflix movie.
Hmm.
But there are two things that elevate it from that sort of that affair, which, I'm not going to knock those movies because they're fun as well in their
Yeah, I
own
love those
way.
films. Yeah.
But I think this movie is elevated because of two reasons. One, this thing is shot in actual locations, which makes a huge difference because you're actually transported. And number
Right.
two, it has a great central performance that really grounds the whole thing. And I think that's what really makes it. And I think, it's a very funny movie. You're transported, like I said, you're in beautiful locations, you're kind of experiencing the joys of living life king size through her and living vicariously through her. And I think there's something very great about allowing yourself to do that just the way the character is doing that as well. And that's why you're locked in with the movie, or at least I have been always. Because I think growing up in most societies is almost like, oh, you shouldn't let go, or you shouldn't spend too much, or you shouldn't enjoy yourself. It's almost like a sinful sort of thing. And
Right.
I think there's something about her performance, really. And of course, the plot of the movie is that she's kind of tippy toeing in that world. So you, as a viewer, are also doing that with her, which I think is really fun and you enjoy that. And then before you know it, at least I find myself always entering a very positive state of mind because I've been
Hmm.
living that journey, through her and imagining what would I do, if what place would I go to. So your head is in that, on that plane, which is a happy place to begin with. And then once you get to that place, you then start seeing the world around you the way it is,
Hmm.
and not in an apathetic way or in a jaded way, but seeing its beauty and its darkness. But because you are in like a comfortable, positive state of mind, I think you can then choose to react to all the beauty and the darkness in the world in a calm, controlled, kind way, which is what she does.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I always walk away from this movie. I've seen it many times. Of course, the obvious message is, live life king size, make the
Hmm.
most out of it, be present, all of that. But I think on several viewings over the last few years, as the world has become so divided and crazy and what have you, I think there's like a subtle message of just engaging with people who might be different from you, who may not see the world the way you see it, in a kinder way,
Hmm.
and see what happens. Even the villains in this movie, they are of course vilified and they're caricatures and what have you, but there is a sense of kindness that comes from her
Hmm.
towards them as well. And I think there's that to me ultimately is the message of kindness, and I will actually return on that message again in one of
Hmm.
my movies of kindness. But yeah, I think the big log line of the movie is enjoy life,
Hmm.
and live life king size, and that need not be in the month of December. That can happen anytime. So yeah, that's my number three, Last Holiday.
Yeah, no, I think the themes you mentioned that this movie does have, I also associate, with the holidays, which is kind of what her character goes through in the film when she finds out she is diagnosed with cancer. That you sort of take stock in like what does matter to you. And I think
Mm-hmm.
she had that delayed gratification. She always was like, oh, I want to be a chef, but I'm not really going to go out there and do anything. I have all these dreams. She has a journal of like all her things she wants to do, but never actually does anything. And then when she does start doing stuff, she realizes that's what she gets, out of life. And I do think your point around I'll call them villains, the antagonists in the film,
Mm-hmm.
especially Timothy Hutton's character. He's not a good guy. Like he's doing kind of not great things. And then at the end of the film, instead of him getting punished, I mean, he gets his comeuppance.
Right.
But he goes basically like out on a balcony to kind of maybe commit suicide. Like he's not in a good place after dealing with all these things. And but then at that point, like Latifah does help him
Right.
and still is like, accepting of him. She's not like wishing ill on him
Right.
whatsoever. Which I think is a lot of, again, something that is part of the spirit of the holidays, like seeing good in everyone, even those folks who, might have done things wrong. Like you could tell he also felt a lot of remorse for some of the things that he was doing in his life that happened in the film and outside of the film.
Right.
That I think definitely speak to the holidays. I'd never seen this movie before. I'd
Oh,
heard of
really?
it. Yeah, I'd heard of
Huh.
it before, but I'd never seen it. And I think it's one of those movies that, and you kind of touched on this too, of the things that elevate it for you, and one of them being central performance. I'm assuming you mean Queen Latifah when you say that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely a vehicle where the movie sort of lives or dies by her.
Right.
And like for me, like her performance just didn't really work at all. I
Hmm.
thought she just like was like woefully miscast, and her persona just did not work in what this movie was trying to do. I just didn't like, she couldn't handle the dramatic scenes very well. Like when she finds out she's dying, I didn't really believe it. She has a moment in the church when she sort of is singing like, "Oh, woe is me! Like, why'd you do this to me, God?" Which is the movie can take that, and there's some dramatic moments in the film. I
Mhm.
just didn't think she really sold it, and I don't know. There's that sense in movies where it's like, oh, everyone loves this person because they got that thing, that it thing, and the plot sort of needs that for the plot to move along. Like, why would anyone hang out with this person? Oh, because they have the thing, and then you kind of buy into it. I just didn't see like, why does anyone think she's that great? I don't know. I to me, like, it didn't work, and it's not that I don't think she's a good actor. She was Oscar nominated for Chicago, and you put her in the right vehicle, and I think she can work. But yeah, I don't know. Something about her in this film just was like
Mm.
did not work for me at all, and I can kind of see why that her career after this, she seems to leaning more into like some of the older types of roles that she used to do before this that kind of worked a little bit better.
Mm.
It was also kind of interesting too, like just when the movie came out, I think you said it was like '06 or something. Just that tone of the time of those movies of being so like more slapstick and fun, and then definitely comedies. I think after this turned to more like kind of mean spirited and like darker and more gross out humor, especially with female leads. And it
Right.
was kind of fun, kind of going back and like, oh yeah, this is sort of what movies used to be, or these types of comedies. So that was kind of nice. And it did remind me a lot of those Lifetime and Hallmark movies, or Netflix holiday movies, which I love. But yeah, her performance just didn't really work with me. And yeah, just like I guess the tone overall was a little odd. Um, the doctor, there's a doctor character that diagnoses her
Right.
with cancer, and I don't really understand what they were trying to do with that guy. He was playing everything for laughs, like a cancer diagnosis for laughs, which I feel like you need a little bit of dramatic weight in the film. And then actually, speaking of villains, that I just said all about Tim Hutton and kindness and all this stuff, and I thought was great. But then there's another character in the film who's like her boss at the Bloomingdale's or whatever that she
Right.
works, and the movie kills him in an
Yeah.
after credit sequence, which was like really odd. I was like, that's weird. Like, why kill
Yeah.
this guy? Like, he didn't need to die. He wasn't like a bad person. And I get that we're
Yeah.
trying to like play a joke with it, which sort of goes back to that feeling I had of all the dramatic moments. They kind of try to play them for laughs. And I don't know. It didn't really work for me, but the hotel was cool. Like I definitely want to go hang out in that hotel,
Oh,
and the food looked nice. But
yeah.
yeah, I just wouldn't want to be there with the queen, I guess. I'd pick somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, on Queen Latifah's part, I can see where you're coming from. and maybe this, we talk a lot about this on this podcast about like, when did you first watch this movie? I'm quite sure if I watched this movie the first time now, I would be like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I would have a very similar reaction to you, and probably even worse. I don't think I would even make it through it, but there's something about when I saw it, and it sort of stuck with me from that time. And now that I have watched it many times, I almost feel like having Queen Latifah, who's not the obvious choice for a movie like this, actually works for the movie. Because her screen presence, which is sort of larger than life, it's hard to imagine her as like a shy person who's held back or what have you. But I don't know, to me, that actually works. Not to say that, she's selling every dramatic moment, but then to your other point, I don't think that's the tone or the point of the movie to begin with, Like, it's not really underlining the dramatic parts. Like, this is not a dramedy. It is really, I think they're going for the comedic slapstick side of things. And and again, I said up top, like, this is not like a 5-star movie for sure. So there's that. So I don't know. I forgive it more just based on when I started to watch it, and I know what this movie is signing up to do when it delivers what it's promising. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, you raise a good point about, like, I was wondering when I was watching this, like, why she was cast in this movie. And I think you hit the nail on the head of why. Like, she's playing against type.
Right.
Her big hit before this, I don't know if it was right before this or in a couple years before, which really kind of made her into a box office draw, was that film with Steve Martin, Bringing Down the House, where she plays like this, very outwardly crazy, like, Tasmanian devil type character who comes into his life. And in this movie, she's playing exactly against type. So now I understand why she was cast. I just think she's not a good actress to pull off this role. That's sort of like, it's not, but now at least I understand. That makes sense of why at the time it's like, oh, let's take her role, but kind of flip it on her head a little bit, because now she is very reserved. And you're like, whoa, this is weird. Like, Queen Latifah is usually like, lives life to the fullest. And she doesn't until, the third act or really the second act of the film. But I will say, this is a remake, I believe, of a film, isn't it? I think it's a remake.
Oh, really?
I think so. Of an older film. And I feel like if the premise is someone dying of cancer, you're kind of signing yourself up to be a dramedy, and you need to play there has to be like some serious moment in this film. But LL Cool J was good. I gotta mention that he was great in this.
He was very good.
Yeah, he was very charming. Cool. Yeah, just never would have seen this, and it was nice to nice. It's lighter fare, which I again appreciate.
Lighter fare.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.